if you do all of those things, I think you can be whoever the fuck you want to be in like 18 months.
Hey guys, welcome back to Be the Standard. I'm your host, Denny Jamazzo. I'm here as always, my best friend and co-host, Mike Burns. And today we have a very special guest. His name is Nick Ricciotti. He is a husband, a father, former law enforcement officer. Appreciate having you here.
Glad to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. So we met, maybe a couple months ago?
Yeah.
And, you had reached out to me. Told me a little bit about your mission and what it is you're doing now, a little bit about your history. We get into that. But kind of just I'd like to kick it off actually from the beginning and maybe get started with, I told the audience that you're a former LEO.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I started my law enforcement career in 2014. I worked in New Jersey for the sheriff's office in one of the counties down there. And I started my career in law enforcement with the jail. So in Jersey, the way it works is the sheriff's office, they are responsible for both the correction side and like their law enforcement bureau side. So when I decided to go into law enforcement, took the test, and I got hired first with the corrections. So I entered into my law enforcement career and I started working for the jail and mainly like working blocks, right? Like we do direct supervision. So I was working like, anywhere between like 15 and 60 inmates. And that's really where I like learned and realized that I wanted to be a cop, because I found out that I was able to talk to people. Like in that setting, it's really important to give respect because you want respect back and treat people like people. And I honestly really thoroughly enjoyed being a corrections officer. I didn't have like these high hopes of like being a street cop originally. But as I worked there and I started like getting involved with one of my mentors who was doing gangs, I realized that I wanted to try and transfer out and start working gangs. And I wanted like that high adrenaline cop stuff. Like I wanted to be on the SWAT team. I wanted to work narcotics and I wanted to do gangs. So I thought that in order to do that, to give my best chances to get there, I needed to transfer out. So I ended up taking the civil service test for law enforcement and I ended up getting hired by the same department, the sheriff's office. So I go through my police academy, I leave the jail, and I start my career as a sheriff's officer in 2016. And this is where like things really start to take a turn for the worse for my career. When I was in the jail, I felt like I had purpose. Like I was legitimately, like I said, happy working there. I just had other career aspects. And when I started working for like the law enforcement bureau, I started losing that sense of purpose because I was essentially a bailiff. So we manned this superior courthouse in the counties. So I was working in a courtroom of like civil and criminal court, just standing by a door. I was wanting people as they came in, and I was like, this is not what I signed up for to be a cop. I was trying to transfer out to other departments. I couldn't do it. I didn't get into a couple units originally that I wanted to, and this kind of started to spiral my drinking, which started out just as going out every couple days or, on my weekend with some guys from work. And it slowly just started getting progressively worse and worse and worse. I was using it essentially to cope with not being happy with work. And to make things worse, I'm an extremely extroverted person. I like being out. I like social engagement. And my wife was working about 2 hours away. So she's a nurse, so she was working at a hospital. So she would stack her days. So when she was away, Nick went out and played. And this is really, like I said, where the drinking started to spiral. Things started getting out of control, and you throw in some drugs in there as well. And yeah, that fire grew quickly.
Yeah, I think you see that a lot, and I've certainly done it too, where I felt like, I didn't have much of a purpose, or I was searching for that purpose, or I really wasn't happy with what I was doing in my career or what was going on in my life or whatever the case is. To seek out, alcohol as kind of a coping mechanism, or a means to try to figure out what your purpose is.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long to figure out that that's not the best strategy.
Nope.
But I've definitely been there. So not to cut you off, but I'd like to hear more.
Yeah. So that fire that I said started growing. As a cop, you get away with certain things. And I said, like, I wanted the high extreme, like adrenaline rush things when it came to law enforcement. And when I wasn't getting it, I was getting it from two things. I was getting it from drinking and driving, because every single time I got pulled over, I was getting away with it because I had that little badge and I could tin them. and I'd either get a ride back home or I would just go about my merry way. That's like that thin blue line that people talk about. Nowadays, it's less now because there's body cameras everywhere, which I think personally is a good thing. Because when I look back on the first time I got pulled over when I was drunk, I wish he wrote me. I wish he gave me a DWI, because who knows what my path would have been like from there. Maybe that would have been the kickstart to my sobriety. Maybe not. Who knows? But I think guys don't realize when they let that guy off who's drinking and driving, they may be doing them a disservice rather than just helping them out. So like I said, with the drinking also came drugs, and I was going out with guys I worked with. And you quickly find out who messes around with drugs and who doesn't. And again, like, this is all about like being fueled by adrenaline. I was getting my rush that I wasn't getting from work by buying drugs. And it wasn't even like I was going into like the hoods to go buy drugs from like drug dealers. Like, I was just getting them from people that I was drinking with, other cops. There's probably pills scattered in the county that I worked for, because I was getting more of the high from buying them than I was actually doing them. And I would eventually realize like, I don't really want these. Gone you go. And that cycle just continued to go and go and go. And I would have spurts where I would stop because something bad would happen in my life. Like, I would either, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, would get on my case and try and like steer me in the right direction. And I would listen to her for a little bit. And then what would happen, like, my friends would call me again. They'd ask me to come out, and I'd go right back out. And this cycle just continues over and over until eventually things like catch up to me.
So that's gonna be my question. If you said your girlfriend, now wife, if she was noticing what you're up to, or you did pretty good hiding that from her, you think?
So you had to be blind to not realize that my drinking was a problem, but she had no idea about the drug use. Not many people did, other than the people that I was doing them with. But the drinking, like, she pleaded with me multiple times, like, stop. Like, I'll never forget this moment, and it still haunts me to this day. I come home from drinking one day, and she's sitting on the couch and she's crying, and she's pleading with me to stop drinking, and she's asking me to go get help for the first time. And I look her dead in the eyes, and I say, F you, I'm never going to speak to anybody ever. You can leave me if this is what you want from me. So that was my thought process, and that was how I viewed like getting help. Like, I thought if you got help, you were weak, you were soft, and that I was a man, I'm a cop. I need to be able to handle what I'm going through, my own unhappiness, my own insecurities. I can handle them without the help of anybody else. Found out quickly that that was not the case.
Yeah, I think a lot of us go through that, especially in these types of professions, or you're in these types of roles and you have a certain, level of training, and you kind of place these expectations on yourself that, you're tough, you're strong, physically, mentally, I can handle things myself. So when you hear from somebody else like, hey, maybe you should get help, maybe you should stop this or stop that. I mean, I've been in that position where it's tough for me to be told what to do, and it's tough for you to tell me what to do. So yeah, I think that's just how, in certain professions, you kind of condition yourself to be.
Not only you condition yourself, but you're conditioned that way as well. Like, if you think of like a police academy, a fire academy, boot camp for, Marines, whatever it is, they tell you that you have to be strong mentally, that you have to be able to handle stress, that you can't break, you can't crack under pressure in the moment. You have to react, you have to do something. But what they don't tell you to do after is how you manage all that stress after the fact. After you're in the fire, what do you do after that to process everything that you've been through? And when you don't know what to do, a lot of guys turn to coping mechanisms that aren't healthy. Drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling. There's a reason why the divorce rate in like the law enforcement community is so high.
Especially like corrections, right? Isn't that like the highest?
It's worse, yeah. Because you're pretty much constantly under stress because of the environment that you're in. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, the divorce rate is high in all of those things: fire, police, corrections, military, and it's not a coincidence as to why.
No way.
It's those high stress environments. It's bringing that type of work home. It's taking that stress mentally home and essentially dumping it on the person you're with. And there definitely needs to be a lot of work continuing to be done in that regard, in my opinion, to deal with that.
And I thought that, you know, I didn't realize that I was using alcohol to cope with a lot of things until later on. Like, I thought that I was using fitness as a way to cope with everything. Like, I still went to the gym, you know, to let out my stress or whatever. But that's just like, the gym is just really a small part in, you know, managing your stress and, you know, things that you have going on with your life. It's just a piece of the puzzle. You know, I didn't realize how much else had to go into just overall better wellness. And I found out, unfortunately, the hard way that you need different pieces, because eventually, like, my world comes crashing down on me and we all end up getting arrested.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that next, man. That's probably tough to talk about, so only do it in the capacity in which you're comfortable. But I think it's obviously a big part of it, but I'd love to hear more about, you know, the arrests, job, all that stuff.
Yeah. So I ended up getting arrested in 2020. About 6-7 months prior to getting arrested, I had a really bad off-duty incident where I was drunk out, and the town that was involved with my incident was trying to handle me the best way they could, and I was just, to be blank, like, I was an asshole to them. It ended up getting back to my department. It's like the first time that, like, I have like that oh crap moment where, like, I might need some help, or at the very least, like, I might need to try and, like, save some of this, like, reputation job wise. So I asked my PBA for some help, some resources, and they told me that I could go down to Florida into an inpatient rehab. And I didn't want to go down to Florida for a couple reasons. Number one, you disappear for more than a month, people are going to talk and people are going to know what you're going through. Like, if you've ever been like a police department, fire department, there's a lot of like gossip that goes on.
Oh yeah.
So
Like a bunch of girls.
I have no idea. It goes around quickly.
there are no secrets. And that said, everybody probably already knew that I had a drinking problem anyway. So in hindsight, it probably wouldn't have been a big deal.
Sure.
But that's just where your head goes. So when they told me that was really my only options, I said absolutely no way, and I just continue on this path. Like I said, about 6-7 months later, I get pulled into my admin office, and they say, "Give me your badge, give me your gun. You're under investigation by the prosecutor's office," which is like the equivalent of like a DA's office in Jersey. So now I'm panicking because obviously I don't know how much they know, what is going to come of all this. And this is really like what starts my sobriety journey, and like the first time I actually seriously start thinking about help, because I don't know what's going on, and like that unknown is the scariest thing in the world when you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I was still drinking at this time. I was still using a little bit of drugs, and I said, I got to start getting a handle on this. So this is the first time that I ever reach out and I start talking to a therapist. Mind you, this is all like during COVID. This is like peak.
Well, I was about to say that because I saw, noticed you said 2020. I was like, oh man, bad timing with this, because that was just a hard time to live life. Never mind a situation like this.
Yeah, and again, mind you, my wife is a nurse, so she's like working constantly because she's in the healthcare. And I'm trying to hide as much as I can from her before I really know how deep this goes. So I eventually reach out to a therapist, and I see her a couple times, and I realize that like she's not for me. She tried, telling me that she was first responder, competent, culturally competent, all that kind of stuff. But I just like wasn't vibing with her. I didn't really get that vibe from her. So I stopped seeing a therapist for a while. And then I realized again, drinking, drugging, continuing. I'm like, I start seeing like the big picture of like, I'm going to lose my job. I didn't think I was going to get full blown like arrested, but I knew I was going to lose my job. So I said, let me start trying to handle this again, because I only want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my family, because my girlfriend was pregnant with our first son.
Oh.
So I wanted to try and keep as much of my life as I could. So I see my therapist, and she's aces. Like, I still see her to this day, almost 4 years later, I still see her. And what she does is she starts turning me on to like all different resources for cops, firefighters, first responders that I didn't really know about. And this really kickstarts my sobriety journey. And this also kickstarts the worst day of my life. Because eventually I get called into the prosecutor's office, and they hand me a stack of evidence, and they say, go through your evidence. I have a lawyer at this time. But our deal for you is plea to probation, and you can never be a public employee again in New Jersey. So after like conversing with my lawyer and everything like that, like they have what they have. I'm caught. It is what it is. So I end up pleading guilty. Mind you, 2 weeks before I plead guilty, I get married. We had a little.
This is all in 2020.
This is all in 2020
It's a
still.
year for you.
Yeah.
Jesus.
We ended up getting married 2 weeks before I ended up 2 weeks before I plead guilty.
Wow. One of the things you said though that I do like is, and I've had to do this as well, is, you know, when you're not vibing with a therapist, you know.
I was going to bring that up because we've had this talk. I know you didn't vibe with.
Oh yeah, and well the thing that, so I was seeing a particular therapist for, a year and a half, almost 2 years. I thought she was awesome, right? I liked her. I liked the things she had to say, but then after the fact, right, or as I started to talk to her a little bit longer, eventually she started saying things that I was like just not okay with.
Yeah.
And wasn't like really just able to absorb and able to, you know, interpret the way, you know, she wanted me to.
Yeah.
And I had to just cut ties because she was just saying things that just made no sense. But it was weird because at first I thought she was great. Harvard, we're in Massachusetts. She went to Harvard. She taught at Harvard. So I'm thinking she's awesome. I'm really bought on everything or sold on everything that she said. And ultimately I was just like, nope, it's time to cut ties. But that's hard to do, right? Because you want to believe that these professionals are for you, but yeah, no, she just wasn't. So I respect you for that.
I think I compare trying to find a therapist like trying to buy a car. Number one, the process sucks. Nobody likes going to try and buy a car, but you can test drive the car to see if you like it. And if you don't like it, you just bring it back to the lot and you don't go back in that car.
Yeah.
And then if you like the car later, you buy it, right? And then later down the road, if you don't like it, you just sell the car, you get rid of it, and then you go buy another one.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like stick with a therapist, especially if you're not comfortable.
Yeah.
Because you're just doing yourself a disservice at that point.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I realized that like if I keep talking to her, like she's starting to make me angry. So like she's just saying things I don't like anymore. So it's just time to cut ties. But no, it's definitely not easy, but it's necessary sometimes.
You don't want to go into your therapist's office and dread having to go there.
No, of course not.
You know, like there's a difference of like knowing that you're going to talk about things that may be uncomfortable for you and have to manage that, but they're there to help you process that, not to go in there full of, you know, anger and rage.
Well, one thing I'd like to ask you, and I don't want to get ahead of it, but it really kind of hits a big topic I think Danny and I talked about, I don't know, how many episodes ago, it doesn't matter, is the fact that you were this guy, right? You were law enforcement. That's what you tied your identity to.
Yeah.
And then you went through all this, and yet you're still here. You know what I mean? Because I will say this, like I don't want to, but we know how this usually goes. People that lose their identity, they're tied to something. It doesn't usually go, you wouldn't be sitting in front of me right now is what I'm getting at. So
No, I got you.
I'm very, I wouldn't say blown away, but I think it's awesome that you were able to, that you're here and you can get into what you've done since then. But I really just want to applaud the fact that you were able to do that. And if you don't mind sharing, like, how did you do that?
So there's,
Because that's dark.
Yeah.
You go through some dark times when you start to lose that identity and you start to feel like your fucking world's just caving.
Some of the strongest people I know, they don't end up
100%. Yeah.
going that way.
yeah, and to give even more context around it, like it was very public as well when I got arrested and I pled guilty. Like again, this is in times where everything is virtual. So my plea deal was online. You know, people got to log in because
Really?
this goes in the news. People got to log in and get to watch like what was the worst day of my life.
Sure.
Take into effect now that after that, 20 minutes later, every single local newspaper, plus some major ones, are starting to report on this. So now I have to not only just process what I just went through, but also play damage control with not only my wife, but my friends, my family. Like you can only tell so many people that this is happening. And eventually just everybody finds out.
Yeah.
And then I start getting phone calls and texts, and my friends are getting phone calls and texts, you know what I mean? So it was a lot to handle, no doubt. But there's two like saving graces to this. Is number one, my wife was just a rock through all of this. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say that like I didn't destroy her, because I absolutely did. Like I had to like come clean with a lot of demons that I was facing and what I was actually doing, which is very tough. And the fact that there's one thing that I've always wanted to do in life is I wanted to be a father. I wanted a baby boy. And I was lucky enough that she was pregnant and we were going to have our first child together. And I was going to get to fulfill that dream of being a dad. So I can't speak to what would have happened if she left and I didn't have that opportunity to like have the family that I want now. But I don't think I would have made the good decisions that I was making had she had not stuck by my side. Like, that's a fact.
Wow.
So kudos to her. Shout out Chelsea.
That's
Yeah, well, kudos. Yeah,
That's
I mean, obviously, kudos to your wife to be able to stick with you and be there for you in the low times. Everyone says they will be till they're actually tested, and I think she's proved that she was for you.
Yeah.
But man, you got to give yourself a lot of credit. I know you probably don't seem the kind of guy that will. I mean, I'm sure you've been around law enforcement, you've been around corrections. I'm sure there's plenty of people that still aren't around anymore. I know there's a lot of people aren't around that have gone through things and weighed less of a thing, and they're no longer with us. And I think it's just amazing that you were able to triumph. And I know we'll get more into your story later about what you've done with yourself. But man, besides your wife, like, I just feel like, I mean, maybe that's all it is. I don't want to pry, but like, what was there ever a time you were like, man, like what the fuck? And then like, I just don't want to do this. And then what kind of kept you going? I guess?
So I would be lying if I didn't say that I didn't think about just not having to go through it all.
Right.
sure.
And the thing with that is, if you don't have to go through it all and you make that mistake that you can't take back,
Of course.
all my
that's what it is.
all my bad mistakes don't necessarily go public, maybe. So like, everybody doesn't know my secrets that I was gonna get like arrested and charged. Like, I wasn't gonna be involved in that because I wouldn't have been there, right? But there's also a part of me that wanted to take ownership of my mistakes
I
Yeah.
love it.
and just get everything over with and just face it head on and face the consequences and see what I could make of myself after the fact.
And that's kind of what I want to highlight on
Yeah.
you, man. Like, that's awesome that you were able to literally just say that and actually go through that and make the best out of it, man. Like, kudos to you, man. That's it's incredible.
Yeah, it takes a special type of a mentality and a special type of person to implement that mentality where you lose your identity, you're at rock bottom, you don't want to be here, and you find something inside of you that says, fuck it, like, I'm going to get through this, and you flip it and turn it into an opportunity to say, okay, this is fucking hard. It's only going to get harder, but let's see what I can do with this.
Yeah,
And that's the comeback story. And you're there, man. You're getting there.
and what I found out too, like when I started getting sober, I found out that there were so many other cops, firefighters, first responders that had like similar addiction issues that I did. And it's like this whole world of like
absolutely.
sober first responders that I had no idea about, right? And as I started like getting involved with them, like the one key message that everybody kept saying was, if you get sober, your life will get better. And I just started buying into that. And sure enough, I start racking up some sober time and things are getting better. Like, I'm able to mend some relationships and I get connected with some really cool people who are able to support me through tougher times. Because once you plead guilty, the next thing that comes is your sentencing. So now, like, that same anxiety, fear, stress that I had when I pled guilty was coming back a few months later. And I was able to reach out to the nonprofit organization that I work with now, Reps for Responders, for additional support. So the president is Frank Bose. He's active NYPD, and he started this organization after he went through a hard time with major depressive disorder, alcohol use disorder. So my therapist turned me on to him, and I DM him one day, and I'm like, hey man, I'm not a cop anymore. I went through some substance abuse issues. I have a really stressful day coming up, and I need some support. And he responds to me, and he just says, in my book, you retired early. Come on in. And that's how I started getting involved with Reps. And the first thing I did was I started going to their meetings that we have every Sunday night. So I just start building up this sober network and a support network to help me, number one, stay sober, and number two, like, manage and all these stressful events that I have coming up. And that's really like the key thing that kept me going through all this, was like that support network that I was able to build.
And that's what I love. And obviously, I think that's always been our goal, my goal forever, is getting rid of the stigma that is in the services that we're in, right? Like, talking, like, kind of just rewind a little bit, but then kind of fast forward where you're at now. Like, you're in a culture where you think you're not allowed to bring that stuff up because, or you just not. It's not popular. It's not the way to be. You suck it up, whatever. And I think we're trying to change that, right? We're trying. It's going to take a long, long time, but I love that you now have the resources, and people don't realize there are resources.
Right.
Before our goal is to get way to the left of this before things get that bad, right?
Yeah.
So, can you just talk more about those resources? What that looks like for you guys in Jersey? I'm sure that there's a lot up here in Mass as well.
Yeah. So New Jersey has a program called the resiliency program, I think it is, and every PD has a resilient officer. So they're supposed to be able to go to them in times of crisis or if they just need help, no questions asked, confidential, and they're supposed to be able to give them the resources that they need. I think it's a great program. I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's utilized the way it should be, though.
Does it stay confidential, though, for real?
Like we just said, police departments, fire departments, what are they? They're gossips.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because I have a good friend of mine who's a police officer in the city I'm from, local, and he's had his issues with alcohol and whatnot, and same thing. It's supposed to be confidential. It's supposed to be able to talk about it. Everybody knows his shit, and I mean, I don't think he cares. He's sober now. He's a great guy, and whatever he's doing well, he hasn't lost any friends or any of that stuff. But the problem is the gossip. People talk, right? And it's just it's it's frustrating from the outside looking in to see it.
Yeah, I mean, look, guys they're afraid to lose their gun if they ask for help because that gun is tied to your identity as well. If you lose that,
Sure.
They're afraid that people are going to view them differently, like they're soft or weak if they have a problem. Like when I go and speak to departments, it's cool because you do see the tide turning.
Yeah.
But you still have these people who are stuck in the old ways, unfortunately.
And that's kind of what I was getting at. Like the tide is turning, but it's just tough. It's a slow turn. Like it's a big ship, right? It takes a long time to turn this.
For sure. Yeah.
It's because it's a generational thing, right? And that mentality is held on to for so long. It does take, and I think it's really peaking with, our wave of like veterans. Because there's so many vets in law enforcement, and just this whole almost connection between like the veteran community and the law enforcement community and the exposure to what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And it's starting to, I think, just be brought more to the forefront, and there's more of a discussion around it. Yeah. But again, there's still those old timers that were in the 90s, didn't experience as much, didn't see as much, who have that more, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm processing this all wrong, but it seems as if like that old school mentality is just, it's going to take a generational shift. Sure. And guys like maybe our age, a little bit younger coming up. Yeah. And I think you will see it turn, but it's just going to take some time. Yeah.
Well,
the biggest thing with that too is having guys speak up about what they've been through,
and that's the effort.
And not feeling like they can speak up, like they're not going to be criticized for it.
Exactly. And look, when I started getting sober, and I stopped drinking, nobody cared that I stopped drinking. Nobody really cared that I had a problem. Mm-hmm. Everybody just wanted me to get better.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed too, and I like I said, I haven't quit drinking, but I've stopped, cut back considerably. I went out with a buddy who, probably a couple months ago now, but we went out and I was drinking just soda water. He was drinking beer or whatever, and we met. There were people around, and it was a crowded area. People thought I was drinking. People thought like people, and the people who knew I wasn't, they didn't give a fuck. No. People don't care what you're doing. So if you're drinking for the wrong reasons, like that reason of just like, oh, well, my friends are gonna think I'm weird.
And if the people do care, then
you're with the wrong people.
Find new people.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but there's definitely that tide that's shifting towards sober, or less of a party culture. I feel like, and that's definitely a positive thing.
Yeah, for sure. And that's really at the nonprofit that I work with, Reps. We do we got a ton of people who come to us who are in addiction and just need that support to kickstart their sober journey. There's a few people that are the Reps people, right? It's the guy that just wants to be better, that is looking for a support system and like-minded individuals who are not engaged in destructive behavior.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go down that path.
Right.
So just to back up, Reps for Responders.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
So we're a nonprofit organization, and our mission statement essentially is to equip first responders with the tools so they can make better decisions on the job and off the job, with the ultimate goal to reduce the suicide rate in the veteran and first responder community.
Awesome. Yes.
So there's a few ways that we do this. We do this through physical fitness. Yep. Our bread and butter of what we do for first responders is we'll take a first responder that needs to get kickstarted on their fitness journey, or they fell off their fitness journey, and we'll sponsor them with a gym membership. So we work with a few BJJ gyms, CrossFit gyms, strength training gyms, and we'll sponsor their membership there.
That's
First
cool.
3 months. As long as you go and you check in and you put in an effort, we'll pay for the first 3 months. Nothing else. Right?
That's cool.
The goal is that they get that itch and they continue on their journey.
And I love that you do 3 months because that's people that don't know that in fitness it takes at least 3 months, right?
Yeah.
90 days. I love that you have that window.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and then we do the same thing with nutrition as well. So we have a nutritionist on our team.
That's awesome.
Same thing. You fell off. Guys, you're working midnight and you have no idea how to eat so you can fuel your body properly, or you're doing shift work, whatever it is. We have a nutritionist and she'll work with you on your nutrition. Same thing. Just show up, do the work, and we're going to pay for your first 3 months.
Wow.
And hopefully this just creates better habits for you to continue. And then we have like that mental health peer support side, where we run a meeting every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time called Responder Talk. Open topic meeting to all first responders. And our first responder umbrella is a little bit different. So we do cops, firefighters, corrections, EMT, EMS, dispatch, but we throw nurses in there as well. Because they also
course.
see a
Yeah.
ton of stuff,
Totally.
right?
Oh yeah.
So open to all. You just have to prove you are who you are with, any organization. And it's an open topic meeting. It's not AA based. It's not NA based. There's recovery talk in it because some people are in recovery. Other guys just want to be better. But it's topics of fitness, nutrition, metabolic health. We have guest speakers come on in the fitness industry. We've had Chris Gronkowski, Gronk's brother, we're in Massachusetts, come on and talk about like life after football, because a lot of guys when they retire don't necessarily know what they do because they hold on to that identity. So he talked about becoming an entrepreneur with Ice Shaker.
Yeah.
We've had doctors come on and talk about metabolic health. We've had guys in the fitness industry, again, like Guy Cisternino, professional bodybuilder, came on and talked about nutrition, physical fitness.
Yeah.
And then we have like your everyday cop who's in recovery or not and has a story to tell that can be positive for people to come on and share.
So I'm just curious because I know labeling matters. Like, what do you guys call that meeting you guys have, and how do you get the buy-in to get people there?
So the meeting is called Responder Talk. It's just an open meeting.
Oh, see, that's good. That's good name.
And
Yeah, I like that.
how you get in, you DM us on our Instagram and just say, hey, I'm looking for the Responder Talk information. As long as you send in like your work ID or something that proves you are a first responder in some capacity, active or retired, we'll just send you the link in.
Yeah, so I just love that because I've talked to before people in my fire department, but like wording matters, right? If you say mental health or anything like that, people are going to go away. Like, they're not going to come there. That's a good name. I've even used the name like working on our mental fitness because sometimes it helps people get rid of that stigma, that attack. When people say mental health, automatically you're damaged. It's bad, right? It's not bad. You just need to work on it. So mental fitness. But I love that name. That's cool.
And part of that, like I said, like I don't want people to think that like this is a powwow AA NA meeting. Like that's not what it is.
And it's right, and it doesn't sound like it. And I think the labeling matters, and that's why I wondered how you guys did it and how you guys get it out there, because I'm curious just for our end here, because labeling everything matters, and to get the buy-in. If people think it's that way, they're not going to show up. But
Absolutely.
The stuff you're saying, these guest speakers and what you guys are talking about, and it's open, that's cool. That's a really cool concept.
The coolest thing about it, honestly, is you get to see guys make connections from all over the country. So we've had 27 states check into the meeting, and we've had 3 different countries.
So this is virtual as well.
This is virtual. Yeah, the meeting's virtual. So we've had 27 states, 3 countries check in. And what you see is you see guys from New York connecting with guys from Colorado. And these guys stay in touch and they start to become friends. And you see them starting to lean on each other as support. Because let's be blunt. Where you work, you may not feel comfortable talking about what you're going through, whether it be professionally or personally with guys you work with.
Yeah.
But you might meet a guy on Responder Talk who's had similar life experiences, and you can lean on him for advice, an ear, anything it may be. And that's really like the power of Responder Talk and why I think it's so cool.
Think about it too. Like that's really just the power of the internet, right? And I think about just this experience. Some of the people that we've been able to network with and have on this show, and people that we're now friends with and consider friends. It's absolutely amazing when you kind of put it out there, what your goal is, what your objectives are, and you start to meet like-minded people, and you start to connect with them and talk with them and pick their brain. And I mean, every time we have a guest on, I learn something just like amazing, right? Like just every time we have a guest on, I learn something that's just awesome. And there's always a takeaway that's just like kind of like heartfelt or whatever. It's just it's really cool.
I mean, why I love reps and why I'm so passionate about it is we really focus on like peer and social support. So like I've been able to meet like really cool, positive, like-minded individuals who have like impacted me. Like there's two guys specifically, like Jason Lacayo, you know, his Instagram handle is Real Jumpman J, and Aaron Lohman, Huge Fat Loser on Instagram. Like these guys just are all about positive vibes and energy, and they have their own story. And these guys have now inspired me to continue on like my sobriety journey and to continue to share my story and set goals for myself, because there are people who like lead by example. And same thing with the President Frank. You know, these are guys that I've met through like social media and through reps, and now I consider close friends of mine.
Yeah, it speaks to the importance of just having like that tribe, right? It's
It's amazing.
And the fact that there's stuff out there, and that's why I love stuff like this, because I feel like most people go the other way about things we're kind of just talking about, or look to other avenues because they don't feel like there's anything out there for them, or something they can relate with. And having things just for these first responders is huge.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I mean, like, this is essentially like why I chose to go down like my career path that I did. So like after I lose my job, I was lucky. I have a friend in the moving business. He hooked me up with a job right away. So finances, I was able to stay afloat. Eventually, it comes a point where you realize I'm not going to be a mover my whole life.
I used to do it. Yeah, I know.
Okay, so you know.
Yeah, that's right. I
Okay.
forgot you were a mover.
Yeah.
So you know it's not a
That was
career.
before I even knew you.
Yeah.
So you know it's not a career.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I ended up getting into the Ironworkers Union the same time that I applied to grad school. So I was faced with a decision of, do I go right and go to grad school, or do I go left and do I join the union? I go left and I join the union. I get my pension, I get my benefits,
Yeah.
and I get a high-paying job,
Huge.
all taken care of.
Yep.
I go right. I have purpose because I was doing a ton of peer sport for reps, so I felt like I would be good at this. But I also put myself in a ton of debt going to grad school. I'm sitting down, getting ready to sign the papers to join the union, and I just stand up and I just say, this is not for me.
Wow.
I hand in my papers, I go to my car, I email grad school, and I say I'd like to, come in. So I start grad school.
Wow.
That's so cool. So sorry, Dan. Like, so you got that right in the moment, because usually it takes people a little bit. Maybe they commit, but what happened in that moment to make you realize? I love that. This is such a good story. What was it?
I realized as I'm looking around the room, I may be going back to an environment that isn't the best for me.
Yes. Yeah. You see that.
And I had a friend who was in the union as well, who sparked the idea. And I realized like it's also a drinking culture too.
Yep. Sure it is.
My main reason for wanting to go that route, honestly, was an adrenaline. Like, you're up on high buildings, man,
Yeah, I'm all set.
bridges,
I'm
like,
good.
Ironwork is
yeah, man, like, and I pictured that as like, I'm gonna make a lot of money.
Those
I'm
guys are
gonna
pretty
get,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get an adrenaline rush from work, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, this isn't a smart move for me. Like, this isn't a good long play for me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was doing a ton of peer sport and I was loving it. So I just made that decision. You know what? Let me really flip the script on all this and let me go and be the person that Nick Ricciotti needed to be 5 years ago. So I start grad school full time. So I'm working full time and I go to grad school full time.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I have so much like respect for that decision, and to have that type of like foresight to know like, all right, this might not be the best environment for me. If I do this, this might happen, or I might fall back into old habits, or whatever the case is. Because I think that's something that I've been, I don't want to say blessed with, but something that I've always been very good at is being able to, not wait until I get the DUI, understanding that like bad shit can happen. And just kind of being able to take that corrective action before I do get to that qualifying event. So I definitely have a lot of respect and appreciation for the fact that you were like, this might not be good for me, and took the right path for you. Then probably definitely the path that's going to give you, I think, the most purpose and fulfillment.
Yeah, I mean, I am passionate, number one, just about mental health and trying to help people. But like I said, like, I want to be the person that Nick Ricciotti needed to be when I was like in the height of my addiction, and just being able to, number one, like have that life experience of it. But now I have like that education portion of it, and I can really dive in and really get involved with like how to treat trauma and substance abuse the right way, and really be a really valuable resource for first responders. Because like my ultimate goal is to be like the go-to guy for first responders when it comes to like trauma and substance abuse therapy. Like that is my end goal. It's a big goal.
No, it's a great goal.
That's a great goal, and I mean, there isn't much of a better market than the NYPD right there.
No, I mean,
Anybody.
look,
Anybody, but like,
Yeah.
look, NYPD just lost another guy
mm-hmm.
by his own hands, unfortunately.
I had a buddy on NYPD, but that's not important.
It is still like an issue, you know, and there just needs to be resources for guys.
Huge issue. So I wanted to just back up to your decision point there, which I thought was awesome. Go this way. And obviously, if your wife must have been like, this would have been very lucrative, but she obviously supported you through taking the other decision, or was that a little friction there, if you don't mind me asking?
No, all good. My wife did not want me to take the ironworker's position.
Oh, really?
Oh, so she was happy.
My wife was happy.
Awesome.
She did not like the idea of me being hundreds of feet up in the air,
Okay, that makes
That's
sense.
fair.
strapped
That's fair.
to just like a line.
Okay, yeah.
Like had I taken that route, every day that I would go to work, she would be nervous that I wouldn't come home more than when I was a cop, to be honest with you.
Makes sense.
It's a dangerous job.
Yeah, man. So
All right, that makes sense. Yeah,
And
I guess
I mean-
I was thinking more of the monetary part of that, but yeah, she's probably like, no, I don't want you up doing that job. It's crazy.
she didn't realize what the monetary was like. Like I ended up doing the math on it. I would have made more money quicker if I joined the Ironworkers Union when I did versus had I stayed the route of a cop.
Right.
That's just how much money there is there. And I knew that.
Right.
But again, like I knew what could happen.
Of course.
So, and I didn't really share the monetary aspect with her, but I don't think she would have cared, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like any good spouse, like she just wants to see the best version of me. And well, hopefully she's getting it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of, like I said earlier, even your first thing when all that happened, it's easier said than done. And I think you guys have been tested together, and the fact you guys are still there together and you got a family, that's awesome.
Yeah. Blessed to say the least for her. And like I said, like she gets to see the best version of me. And what's really cool is like the story is not done yet.
Absolutely not.
You know, like I've set like small goals for myself when I decided to go to grad school. Like my first goal was number one, just to get in and have the option. My second one was to get a 4.0 my first semester. Boom, crush that, get a 4.0. And then I'm like, let me graduate with a 4.0. Let me graduate in 2 years with a 4.0. Boom, did that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to pass my licensing exam on the first try because you have to wait 90 days after.
Yeah.
You got to pay more money.
Yeah.
And I want to get this career kickstarted. Boom. I crammed study for 3 weeks. I passed my exam on the first time. Now I'm just waiting for that actual license to come in the mail. Want to get a job the second I graduate. Boom. Got a job where my internship is. I was fortunate enough to have a couple job offers because of the space that I'm in and the connections I've been able to make with people. But I ended up taking one with a nonprofit. So I'll be working with individuals with like serious addiction and mental health issues before I really go down that route of getting involved with like the first responder community in that aspect. I think it's just going to overall make me a better clinician working with like a nonprofit and that kind of population before I get into the first responder population.
Yeah, makes sense.
Again, and just another thing that I have a lot of respect and appreciation for is the delayed gratification aspect of it, and setting the small goals and knowing that this is the process. This is what I'm going to go after. This is the process I'm going to implement to get there. And you go after those things. And I've told the story about when I went back to college myself to just get my bachelor's.
Yeah.
And all the work and all that it took. But you're going through that not with no, guaranteed outcome. But, like you said, you set those small goals for yourself. You set aside the desire for pleasure, that pleasurous black hole that we love.
Yeah.
And you just trust in your process and in yourself. And boom, look at that. The results are there waiting for you.
I mean, there are a few things that I did which I think just can help anybody be successful when you have a goal. Like number one is you have to figure out what that goal is, what you want to do. And you need to manifest it. You need to visualize yourself accomplishing that goal. Like you need to picture yourself there so you can believe that you can actually get there. Next thing you need to do is put pen and paper and develop a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plan of action. Here's one of my smaller goals. There's the end goal. When you're doing that, develop a support system. Get guys around you that are going to support your decisions and make sure that they can also call you out when you're not making good decisions. Because I think that's more important, is to have people call you out.
I can't agree with you more. And I'm sorry to cut you off because I don't know if I've ever brought it up in this podcast, but I only want to surround myself with people that are gonna call me on shit.
Yeah.
Like otherwise, if you're enabling me, or you're blowing smoke up my ass, you're not helping me. You know what I mean? I want people to be like, hey, Mike, you're fucking up, or Mike, what are you doing? Or maybe there's something not that drastic. Maybe it's just a little course correction. Like, hey, Mike, you thought about this? Maybe look at this. So that's why we said our circles are very small. I'm 45 years old now. Like my circle's very small.
Yeah.
And because I only want to surround myself with people that are going to do that for me. So
Yeah.
I think that's key.
And I've had that happen. Like Frank, he's checked me. And, you know, if you can take your ego away from it
Yeah,
and look at it from
absolutely.
the
You have
outside,
to.
you're like, you know what? You're right. This isn't a good path. Thank you for correcting me. Now I'm back on course.
Yep.
You know, so you develop that support system. You implement your plan to action. You realize that things may not go as planned and that there's going to be curveballs at you. Learn from the experience and crush your goals. And that's kind of the attitude that I took when I started grad school. Is I knew that it was going to be hard, just time wise, finishing number 1 in 2 years. You know, managing, being a husband, a dad, time, everything, friends. You know, it was tough. It was a grind, but you know, like I said, like I had that support around me, and I was able to push through.
It's funny because I've been saying for 3 years at least, probably longer. Like, oh, I need to go back and get my MBA. Need to go get my MBA. Now he's like, after talking to you, it's like, fuck. Now I think I have to do it.
Do it.
But dude, I still have enough GI Bill left where I think it'll be free, or most of it will be free, almost all of it.
I mean, I've always liked learning. So when I was a cop, I was going to get my master's degree, and I was having it paid for. I didn't have to go pay for it and take out loans. You know, so like,
But that's the cool part about a master's degree too. Every course is what you want to take. It's not all the bachelors and all the basic core foundation bullshit that
No.
you know is just to make money for the school.
yeah, and like there were a few electives that I had to take, and I took substance abuse electives. So like, I have the education now to go and get my drug and alcohol license at the same time that I'm going to get my mental health license. Because the license that I'm getting, it's called a licensed associate counselor, which just pretty much means I'm a therapist, I'm a counselor, I have to have a supervisor. After I rack up a certain amount of hours under supervision, I'll be fully licensed. I can go out, I can start my own
Is
practice.
that another test?
Nope.
Just
So
you
it's
gotta
just
rack
the
up
hours.
Yeah, it's collect your hours, apply, show your paperwork, and boom, you're good.
Nice.
Same thing with the drug and alcohol, man. I have the education where I can just go and rack these hours. I can get both licenses at the same time. So in 3 years, I'll be fully licensed for drug and alcohol and mental health, which will just open up a ton of doors for me professionally.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I just want to highlight just to the people, you know, our viewers and anybody listening to this, like, this is the hero story, right? Like, you had this one vision for yourself. This was it. It went extremely bad, or it went badly, and you lost everything, right? Completely had to change your identity, or maybe not tie your identity to something, and then work really hard to get where you're at now. And the growth factor there, and your story's being written. I love that you always say, like, your story's never over, man. And it's only been written. So I'm really looking forward to see how this is going to play out long term, because you definitely have the right mentality. To go through what you went through is only going to make you more resilient and relatable to anybody out there.
You can't see it. My arms are shaved. I have chills when you said hero, because in reps we have something called the hero journey, where it's you go on a journey, you face a crisis, you learn a lesson, and you come home victorious.
Yeah.
You know, and that's life. And that's not just
life,
any
yeah.
major crisis. That could be anything.
Yep.
Job loss, new girlfriend, a breakup, anything. So I love that you just used that
Yeah,
too.
but it is, and people need to understand that's what it is. And instead of looking at their bad things or happen in life, things that aren't going the way, and they lost, like you lost everything.
Yeah.
You know, luckily you still had your wife and all that, but you lost everything. You lost everything you were fighting for, and you've turned it into this, and that's the hero story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's awesome.
I appreciate
So
that,
good.
man. Thank you.
no, it's cool, and I can relate to it, and you know I can relate to it because I thought for the longest time, he'll tell you, when I got out of the Army, I was like, I'm going to be a cop. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a police officer or a firefighter, because I didn't think that like I was really going to be good at anything other than some kind of a service job.
Yeah.
So I was a soldier. That was my identity. You know, I came back, took all the tests. You know, it didn't pan out. Didn't become a police officer. But that's why I ended up going back to school and got my degree and ended up in a sales career that I really enjoy. But having to pivot when you really just have these expectations that your life's going to go one way, and then it goes another, it takes and not to pat either one of us on the back, right? But it takes a strong mindset to think your life's going in one direction, have something negative happen and take place, and having to pivot and take your life into another direction. that ultimately, you learn that things just happen how they're supposed to because they turn out better.
Yeah. And when you lose something that is not in your control, it's that much harder to process and to understand. Like, it took me a long time. It took me paying $175 an hour to cry to my therapist about what I did and the bad decisions I made, having to face everything. It took a long time to really just fully work through it and process it. And again, like, it was public, it was tough, man. Like, but thankfully I had a strong support system. I enjoyed going to therapy. She was good. She was able to work with me on a lot. So,
That's an incredible story, man. Like, I love it. And I hope one day, I know, like, Denny's starting to write his book. Maybe you might think about doing the same. You have an incredible story, and I know it's still being written, but I think it's volume 1. It would be pretty intriguing to me to read at this point.
it's a bucket list for sure.
Yeah.
And like I said, like, I want to dive into like that education of like trauma and substance abuse because I think it's just so useful to the first responder and veteran community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things that that I try to tie into every guest that we have is our core values here. You see them all the time. I post a lot. Creating habits. Setting standards, creating habits, execution, and accountability. And we try to bring on people that, or we always bring on people. I won't bring somebody on that doesn't encompass those things. So in talking to you and getting to know you and seeing your content online, man, I'm really happy that you came. And I'm not ending the interview by any means, but I just want you to know that it's great to have you here. It's pretty cool because you do. It takes implementing all of those core principles that we cherish and we value to do the things that you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I love the name of this podcast, like Be the Standard, because I want to be the standard for my kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I want to teach them that it's, number one, it's okay to have emotions and you can express those emotions. But I'm also going to give them the tools and the resources to be able to work through those emotions and not go and turn to unhealthy habits. So, and this is just more motivation every day to wake up and just stay sober.
Awesome, man. Great story.
So,
I like it. I like it.
The fatherhood in me, like, that is really like that driving factor to me to continue to push forward. Like I said, like, it's the one thing that I've always wanted to do. And I'm lucky where my kids haven't seen me drink. And I just hope that every day, like, I can continue to stay sober and they're not going to see me drink.
And I just got chills, hearing that kind of, because that's especially given your past, like, that's a great gift to be able to give them.
Yeah.
They're never going to know that guy.
Yeah. And they're going to hear about him for sure.
Well,
and that's
your
just
responsibility is probably to be transparent.
But
right?
that's cool though, because a lot of people would want to bury that guy.
No.
You're not burying that guy. You're like, hey, this is what I am, the man I am now because of that guy, and I want you to learn from me. So that's awesome.
That's the accountability factor.
Yeah.
That's good.
My like biggest fear when I was going through all this and we had our first son was he's not going to see daddy as a hero. Like, you think of like little kids, like they look up to cops, they love the firefighter trucks, like they think they're heroes. Like, I was so worried that like my son's not going to think I'm a hero anymore, and I slowly started learning like your job doesn't make you a hero. Like, just being for your kids, being present,
that whole
providing for them, validating whatever they're going through. Like, that's really like what makes you a hero to your kids. It's not a uniform, it's not a gun, it's not a badge, it's none of that.
Yeah.
It's just showing up every single day for them.
I love that. So true. Like, it just goes back. Like, I keep bringing it up because it's just, you really are proving the point to that. The one thing we talk about is like not tying yourself to a thing you're doing in your life. Like, I am not a police officer. I'm not a firefighter. Like me, I'm not like the things I have. Even being a gym owner, a firefighter, and a sergeant major in the National Guard. Like, that isn't me. These are things I'm doing right now.
Right.
But my identity's not tied to those things. And you exemplify that. Like, you were corrections police officer, and then you were able to then continue on and shed that identity. So let me ask you this, actually, because I keep saying it. Did you tie your identity to that back then, or were you always pretty good at never doing that?
If you asked me to tell you about myself, the first thing I would have told you is I'm a cop.
Yep.
First thing. Yep. It wasn't going to be, even if I was married at the time or not, it wouldn't be I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a husband. It would be I'm a cop. So, yeah, my identity was tied to that. I carried everywhere. My badge was on me, obviously, because I was carrying. But, like, I had my gun and my badge on me a large majority of the time.
And the fact you're this, I love that, man. It's awesome. And now you're talking about these are the things that are important to me. I am a father first. I am a husband first. I am this. Awesome, man. Good shit.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and one of the things I've said previously is that once you can shed that, like that tying your identity to one particular thing or two particular things, you put yourself in a powerful position.
Yeah.
When you can do that, because now you're in control.
Yeah.
You're not tying yourself to these external things or these external resources or sources. You're in control.
Yeah.
And that's a great position to be in.
And to go back to reps for responders, like this is what we try and like get the point across to guys is it's like, don't tie your identity to a job.
Yes.
You know, like go out and make new friends who aren't in your department. Find a hobby that you can do other than going to work overtime to support whatever, you know what I mean? Like find a hobby that you're passionate about that brings you joy, you know, so you can break away from that.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Like, you know,
I just
been
want to tie like to like what Denny said. I don't think I've ever heard him actually say that before. And then what you said earlier, being like, when you can shed that part of your identity, and then you have control again. And you went back to when all those things were happening to you with the trial and all that. And it was completely out of your control, and you were able to shed that. And that's the problem. Like you don't have control of those things. We don't.
No.
But the things you do have control of, the things you're taking control of, and the way you're moving forward with that, I think tie together really well. Great. It was awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny. A lot of people say it, right, but they don't live it, and it's
They
like,
definitely don't mean it. Most people don't mean it.
But everybody says, control what you can control, right? Don't worry about it. If you can't control it, it's no big deal. Like everybody says it, but it's tough, and it takes a tough mindset to actually live that,
Absolutely,
and enact that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, like the unknown is scary. You know, not having control of things and outcomes is even scarier.
Yeah.
But again, like that's where like just surrounding yourself with people who support you is huge. You know, social connection, social, support is huge. You can't do things alone.
Oh, 100%. Like that's why, we do this podcast together because I was like, this guy has been my guy.
Yeah.
Like for years. We're talking a decade at least. Where it's like, if I need something, it's him. So like, there was no chance I was gonna try to do this by myself.
Yeah.
He totally could though.
He says all the time.
He just brings me along. He just invites me. Him and Jeff.
The muscle.
They show me. They tell me when to show up, and I show up.
Yeah,
so.
he says all the time, "Oh, you could do it without me." I'm like, maybe, but I don't want to.
You don't want to, yeah.
This is my guy, and he's coming whether he likes it or not.
I love it.
You know.
Yeah.
Let's bring your people with you on your success train.
Absolutely, and that's what he said. I was like, I'm bringing you with me. I was like, all right, man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I love it, man.
For sure. I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on, but
I mean, we've hit that. Like, if you haven't checked us out yet, if you're a first responder, check out Reps for Responders. The Instagram handle is exactly what it sounds like, Reps for Responders. Just type it in your search. We will come up. If you're interested in joining Responder Talk, send us a DM. We'll get back to you soon. Just need to provide your credentials, like I said, and we'll send you the link. It's a great opportunity to meet positive individuals who could have a lasting impact on your life.
And it's virtual.
100% virtual.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And we have a lot of people in that community as part of our audience and our demographic. So I wouldn't be shocked if you got some hits off of that. So and I really hope you do.
Yeah, and I mean,
sounds like you're doing awesome things.
We're a full nonprofit, 501c3. Like we run on donations, we do events. So if you ever see us online, like do an event, and you want to support the cause, like this is how we pay for these first responder sponsorships.
Yeah, especially
through donations.
I love that you talked about, and I think it does help what you're actually paying for, right? What your money goes to. And I was gonna ask you when you said it back then. I was like, how are you guys getting funds for this? That's pretty. Like 3 months for all these things. I mean, that's pretty hefty.
Yeah, I mean, we do gym events is a big one that we do where we'll do like a workout or something like that. People will pay to come in, and they'll donate through that. We have like clothing that we make a small, money on, but it's more just marketing.
Right.
But yeah, it's all just through like donations and running, events to help. And we've been able to do honestly some really cool things. We reached out to Echelon Front last year. They came out and they did a training with Nick Lavery.
Yeah.
It was actually this year, I'm sorry. This past May, they came out and they did a training, which was really cool to hear from the guys at Echelon Front and Nick Lavery about leadership. I'm sure you guys are obviously familiar with them.
Yeah, Nick's a Boston guy.
Yes.
Yeah. He spoke at like one of our we had one of our blue cord balls for the infantry, and he spoke there.
Yeah.
Massive human being. Good story. Unbelievable guy.
You want to talk about a guy that commands the attention of a room like that is Nick Lavery, honestly.
Six, 280, and he's missing a leg.
Yeah, it's insane. And him and the guys at Echelon Front were absolutely aces to deal with. They were so cool. They stuck around. They answered questions for people, and just the content of what they were talking about was awesome.
Yeah.
And we've had people, like I said, like in the fitness industry, we've flown people out. They've done seminars on like powerlifting or bodybuilding for us, and we just got to pay for them to get out here, and they'll donate like the registration back to us. So we're doing some really cool things in the mental health fitness world of first responders.
Keep that up, man. That definitely hits my heart pretty good, because that's always been something I really appreciate, and something we're really trying to get to the left of, right before things become too bad, and just letting them know if they do though, like there's still help out there. So keep it up, brother. I love it.
I mean, my favorite event that we do every year, like I'm wearing the shirt Fit for Duty. So there's a guy, Mike Coonahan, who's NYPD, and Mike Trotter. They're both first form athletes, and they used to do this event called Fit for Duty prior to 2020. 2020 obviously stopped things. When they started kicking it up again, they decided to choose us as the nonprofit to donate all the proceeds for. Dude, it's awesome. They run a workout. We get about 100 to 200 people to come out. They do like a quick workout, and then it's just like social interaction and giving you a chance to meet people. It's a day where people can forget about their problems and just like set a goal for themselves that day for a workout, and then relax. We did it at a restaurant on a patio. So we had a brunch after. We had a guy there with cold plunges.
Yeah.
We had vendors there. Yeah, man, it was an awesome like 4 hours for people just to come and enjoy themselves and their families too.
That's cool.
That's sweet.
So this is what we're about, just having a good time and getting like-minded people together.
Yep. It's great.
Nice. Cool, man. Well, definitely appreciate having you, man. I can't believe you made the trip up here, but very appreciative of it.
Yeah, man, this was awesome.
But yeah, no, appreciate it. And, check out Nick's, what's your Instagram handle?
Nick_RFR4.
Yeah, check out Nick's Instagram. Also, obviously find us on Instagram at Be The Standard Podcast. I'm Denny Jamazzo on Instagram, and Mike Burns 1. As always, appreciate your engagement, appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.